In Russia and Portugal, the dominating temperament is the melancholic. In Spain, the choleric. In Italy, the sanguine. In Finland, the phlegmatic. In many countries, there is no dominating temperament, for instance, in the US and France, because of the biological melting pot. Culture is not a temperament. Well, the American culture seems to be a choleric culture, but it's not, no, it has nothing to do with temperament. It is because the American dream is about doing things. That's so simple. So people went to America to do things and to build things, and that's it. So you must not confuse the culture with the temperament. Temperament is something biological. The culture is something that has to do with history, it's something a bit different. So in America, there is no special, I would say, you have everything in terms of temperament because you have an incredible melting pot of different people coming from different nations. But in Russia and Portugal, it's typical. You see the majority of people are melancholic. In Spain, the dominating type is choleric, Don Quixote. I mean, in Italy, the sanguine. In Italy, the sanguine. Many people tell me, well, Spain, Italy, the same people. They are not the same people. The Italians are very sanguine people. They are absolutely on the outside. They are absolutely people-oriented, fundamentally people-oriented, not at all action-oriented. So in Finland, I lived in Finland 18 years. Well, all the Finno-Hungarian tribes are fundamentally phlegmatic, all of them. It's a biological thing, very phlegmatic people. When we say phlegmatic or choleric, we are speaking about biology. So this has no moral content. You must not be, if you think, I'm a phlegmatic, you must not feel bad. Or I'm a choleric, you must not feel bad with that. It's a biological definition of what you've received. It's not a moral statement. If I say you have no courage, yeah, this is a moral statement. If I say you are imprudent, that's a moral statement. But if I say you're choleric, okay guys, that's good. It can be only good. It's not a moral statement. Okay, so you have to be very sincere with yourself, and when you make some temperament tests, you have to say, okay, I have to think about my first reaction to external stimuli. I must not think about what I do in reality. I need to think about what is my first reaction to this. Because your second reaction is your character. It's what you're going to do in reality. But the first impulsion that you have is biological. So that's why those temperament tests are very complicated. Because when you make a temperament test, you have to think about not what you are doing in reality. Because what you do in reality has a lot to do with your character. You know, the temperament test is very much about what's your first impression, your first feeling, your first movement. So it's not easy at all. It's very, very, very difficult. Many people cannot have a lot of difficulties to get to know their temperament because they have difficulties to make this distinction between their first reaction and what they do in reality. And then they answer to those temperament tests from the point of view of character and not from the point of view of biology. So everything collapsed. And then they don't get to know their temperament well. So you have to be a deep person in order to understand your temperament, because you have to understand, okay, this is my first reaction. I am action-oriented, guys. Even if I do little, I am action-oriented. My nature is directed towards action. My temperament, my character stops me very often, but I am a doer, biologically speaking. You see, so it's not easy, but it's a very important thing to make this distinction. Maybe a good way to get to know our temperament well is to ask our parents. Because when you're a kid, when you're very young, you don't have character yet. You have a potential character, but you have not developed your virtues yet. So you're very much a biological product with a spirit. But this spirit is here, but it's not developed. So what happens? When you're very young, your parents, if they know this science, they can very quickly get to know what's your temperament. Because they see how you still are not using your freedom, you still understand what freedom is about. So for the first years of your life, Your parents should get it almost clear what kind of temperament you have. You don't remember yourself when you were young, but your parents, yes, they have to remember yourself. They can remember you very well. So you have to understand this distinction. It is so important in leadership. Our temperament inclines us in one direction or another. The choleric is inclined to do things, not to care for people. The melancholic is inclined to contemplate ideas and experiences, not to take action. The sanguine is inclined to communicate with people, not to put the last stone to his many projects. The phlegmatic is inclined to deliberate, not to dream of great endeavors. These are inclinations, biological inclinations. Our physiological inclination can be balanced by virtues. Cholerics need to practice humility, to care for people. Melancholics need to practice audacity and take action. Sanguines need to practice endurance and finish the job. Phlegmatics need to practice magnanimity and dream of great things. We do not climb the same slope toward the summit of perfection. The slope depends on the temperament. So you see, each one of us, we have our inclinations. If you're a sanguine, you love people, you like to be with people, you're very spontaneous. To put the last stone to all of your project, it's not something easy for you. But if you develop the virtue of endurance, you will do it. A choleric is a manager. He does things. His strong point is not to take care of people. He doesn't take care of people. He thinks about things, biologically speaking. So he has to develop character, the virtue of humility that will help him care for people. But biologically, he is not inclined to take care of people. A choleric is not biologically inclined to take care of his employees. He's inclined to achieve a result. A melancholic person is inclined to contemplation. Biologically speaking, he is not inclined at all to action. He has to develop the virtue of audacity, boldness, that will help him transform contemplation into action. A phlegmatic person is a very rational being, scientific approach to reality, dispassionate. He's not inclined to dream. He's not a dreamer. He will have to develop the virtue of magnanimity in order to dream more. In order to understand that he has to go against the grain many times. In order to understand that the status quo is not necessarily what's good for him. So he will be challenged by the virtue of magnanimity. So you see, each temperament has an incredible power, but each temperament at the same time, each temperament requires the development of a specific virtue.